Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Out of the Blue, and another of our Friday afternoon chats designed to help you with your school marketing and communications. Today's topic is promotional photography. Now, I'm a firm believer that pictures speak 1,000 words, and good promotional photography for a school can be the driving force behind really effective school messaging, your marketing and your communications. So we're joined today by Andy Catterall, who has a huge amount of experience in producing effective promotional photography for schools. I'm sure you'll get lots from our conversation with Andy. I'll be back at the end as usual with more information about what to expect from next week's episode. But in the meantime, sit back, grab your brew and enjoy the chat. I'll see you later. Hello everyone, welcome to Out of the Blue, and we're delighted to be joined today by professional photographer Andy Catterall. Andy, hi, nice to meet you.
Oh, how are you all doing? Good to see you.
Andy. And obviously, Andrew, we've known each other for some time, and we've been lucky enough to have you create the photography on a number of our design projects over the years. So we'd be really interested to know, photography is such a specific thing to be doing. How did you get into that in the first place?
It was probably my maths teacher, actually, Mr. Fuller, who got me into it. I wasn't particularly good at maths, but he gave me a spare camera, and that sort of sparked my interest, really. And I was only about 14, something like that. And I knew exactly when I was holding this, I think it was a Zenith, something like that. You know, my hands were shaking. I knew from then this is what I want to do. And at school, we were lucky to have a dark room. So went in there, you know, and that was all quite magical. So then after that, I didn't do particularly well with my exams, but I was very focused on what I wanted to do. And
even from that age, that's quite an early age to.
It was, yes, I was lucky, really. And I'm in
I
a
like
way.
What you did there, actually, Andy.
What's that?
I like what you did that. Then you said I was quite focused on what I wanted to do. I like what you did there. Really good, really good.
So to me, that's what school should be all around. You know, all about trying to find your, vocation in life. Really, it doesn't all have to be academic. So they found it for me. Then I went on to college, left college, came down to London. So I assisted for about 6 years. So it's like my apprenticeship. So I carried bags around in very glamorous places because we worked for Hello magazine for 3 years. So that was quite good fun. So we met the rich and famous. And then after that, I decided I wanted to do it myself. And that's another big step. So then you have to find your clients. And for the past decade, I've been working in the education centre and just absolutely loving it.
And why education? What made you move into that area?
I think I know the answer to that, Mark.
What's that?
So if we just bring Andy's school photo up on screen now.
Andy, to be fair, we ask every guest that comes on the show to provide a school photo, and you've been very generous in sending one over. And actually, compared to some of them, it's quite hard to take the mickey out of this one. It's
no,
bless you.
I think the whole reason you got into photography and then focused on the education sector is so that children of the future didn't have to suffer having such bad photos, to be honest. That you blazed the trail to improve school photography so that no other child had to look back and see photographs like this.
Maybe, I don't know.
The sepia tones and in fact, your school tie looks exactly the same as mine. I think we've probably got them from the same school.
Yeah, South Craven School, good place. Yeah, I think it's 1,500 kids, something like that. Yeah, in a little village. No, happy days there. I enjoyed it.
Definitely the same backdrop and the same cardboard frame.
Could be the same photographer. Maybe, I don't know.
Probably.
I think they all just did the same thing. It was like a course they all went on to produce.
In a way, it's the same thing nowadays. It's white background, isn't it? Sit there and bang. And that hasn't really moved on for a while. I don't know what the next step might be, but
yeah, it is quite tricky though, isn't it? That type of photography when you've got so many children to get through.
It is.
It is. You've got to have a very templated, systemized approach to it. I love the photographs that you take, and I think that there's so much opportunity that you spot and see as you're going around the school, with children, the interactions that they have, those moments where they're playing together or interacting with something in the classroom or with a teacher. And as a parent, I would love to be able to purchase a photograph like that, because it's a moment that will never happen again. They're not just stuck staring at the camera. And there's so many beautiful expressions and backdrops to them and action shots that are taken. It's a real shame that we can't try and capture that for our school photography, that stereotypical school photography. Sorry, I'm rambling on a little bit, and I know that's not what you do, but
it is interesting, that, isn't it? Because that whole, what we're trying to do there is effectively to promote the school and to put across the character and the ethos of the school and make sure that's reflected in the imagery, because that makes our job so much easier when we come to design something, because the pictures are speaking for us, really. We've got to work less hard in the design we create. But it's interesting, isn't it? Why don't schools think about that? Because you're right. I mean, I get a photograph every year of my daughter sat on the bench, turned to the side with a backdrop behind her in a school uniform. And I could take that myself downstairs. And
no, you couldn't.
That's the issue. Everybody's got a super camera now on their phone. It's a lot more. There's a lot more photography nowadays, generally, of kids and the family shots. I mean, the old days, you'd just take pictures on a holiday, wouldn't you? But now it's an everyday thing. And it's great for me because kids are very much used to being photographed now. So it's not a huge deal if a photographer comes in a classroom. It's quite normal for them, really, nowadays.
Yeah.
I think it's the teachers that get more nervous.
Really? That's interesting.
Especially now, because everybody's got bad hair. I'm finding that issue a bit at the moment.
So if you were, is there anything you have to do specifically in early years? I imagine that's probably where you get the biggest issue with the children, is it?
I find early years the easiest. I mean, you have to go with it. You have to sort of, you can't really direct them. What I normally ask the staff to do is any kids who can't be shot, just put a little sticker on them, and that saves a whole load of time. Yeah. And then you kind of go with it. You might bring a few props, like bubbles are always good. Messy play looks great. And especially at that age, early years, you can get them laughing at anything. I'll just put something on my head and they'll just laugh. So I find that age, pretty straightforward to shoot, really. Yeah, I don't mind that.
My imagination's running away with me as to what you're placing on your head.
I think the last job I did for you guys, there was some bunny ears. There's always props around, so I stick them on, and they love all that sort of stuff. So you got to get them laughing, showing that emotion. Really happy kids at play, happy, contented, and it's really just observing them and seeing that's essentially what you're employing me for, to see that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Use longer lenses, because classrooms generally can be quite cluttered. So I use quite shallow focus. So you sort of lose the background and really focus on that kid's expression. That's what I'm looking for.
So shallow focus, is that?
That's basically a lens, a big aperture. So that means the background goes out of focus. You focus on the eyes and the background will go off. Because as I say, classrooms can tend to be a little bit cluttered. So.
And what does that help with, Andy? What does that help with when you put that into the design? What does that help with?
It just looks cleaner. It really focuses on the child's expression. Just a cleaner shot really looks more professional.
Okay. And I guess you can then apply text over the top of that background where it's looking cluttered and in focus. Yeah. You can't really, in the design, you can't put text over the top because you might lose it. But if it's very blurred and out of focus, then it allows you to create the design that you want.
And with a website, normally it's letterbox, isn't it? It's that shape. So you'd leave a bit of space at the top so you can crop in. So you've got to think a bit like a designer as well, where you're going to put that text. But normally from a client, you get a brief saying, you get a layout essentially. What if they're going to be posters or a prospectus, so you'd know where to put the camera, where the text is going to be. So you've got to keep that in your head when you're shooting.
So just in terms of the brief, you mentioned a brief then, what ideally when a school approaches you, they're thinking that they need some new photography, ideally what would that brief contain? What would they tell you as the photographer that they need? What would you recommend to them?
Basically how the shops are going to be used, whether it be web, prospectus, posters, social. So I've got an idea in my head what shape they're going to be, so I can shoot both landscape and portrait to
Okay.
suit those needs. Anything they've got going on within the school that's got that sort of wow factor that would really attract parents and students. A climbing wall, amazing science, if they've got a STEM offer, that sort of thing. Anything like that on the day. And if it's not happening on the day, feel free to set something up, and I can still make it look authentic.
Yeah.
So that's quite a good way of doing it. So the more activities on the day I'm there, the better, really. I can give you more variety.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And do you need somebody available with you to take you around the school? How does that work usually?
It depends on the school. Normally I'm chaperoned all the day, which I don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm DBS, so somebody might come around with me for the morning, show me around, be with me. And then in the afternoon, most of the kids know who I am, the staff know who I am, and then I'll sort of more freeform. Then I can go off on my own and just see stuff and snap it. And I quite like that, just have that freedom to shoot things like that. So it's great. Normally sometimes I get half a day in a school, which is a bit of a pressure, that, because you've got to go through it. But a full day is lovely, because then you can have the time to just sort of just consider it a little bit more, consider what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, Andy, sort of watching a lot of the stuff that you do, you've worked quite extensively in the independent sector. You've done lots of shoots in independent schools. Is there anything that you've been involved with there, or has developed within an independent school that are sort of techniques or styles that perhaps now state schools and academies could adopt and make use of?
Yeah, I think we're doing a lot more hero shots, those very polished, high-end looking shots, clearly retouched, that give a real story to the image. I don't know if you're going to show a few examples, because it's quite hard talking about it when I can't see it. But yeah, that's been a trend for quite a while in the independent sector. So that those really image-grabbing pictures, those wow images. So we've been doing that for a while, but they do take quite a long time to shoot. I mean, some of them can take up to an hour to shoot, and then there's a lot of post-production on them. So it's a lot more involved, and typically I'd get a layout from an art director beforehand, so we know exactly what we're doing.
Right.
A lot of it's shot on white background, and then we shoot the background separately. That's all merged together. And picking the right students as well, picking those characters. So might do a little casting beforehand.
Okay.
So they've been doing that a lot. And then some schools just want pure reportage, authentic look. So depending on the client, really, what they want.
Yeah.
And so for that, sorry, Mark, for that casting, Andy, what is that something that you get involved with? Do you help the schools find the best pupils for that?
That's normally on the day, and that they'll tend to do it themselves. That they normally pick the head boy and head girl, and bless them, there might be amazing academics, but they might not have that little spark. And you find that I find the slightly naughtier kids just have.
I was going to say the naughty
kids.
What I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's no naughty kids, but you know what I mean. They have a bit of a spark about them, so we'll have sort of a batch of kids, and we'll just try out a few, and see who's performing.
What you meant to say, Andy, was the children with a personality.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the phrase is more challenging nowadays.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny that I was chatting with a school only this morning, actually. We were chatting through photography, and we talked about the characters that they could perhaps use in their photography shoot. And I sort of questioned, well, you sound like you've got children in mind, particularly, and the client said, no, but I've definitely got children I know it won't be, which was quite interesting. I thought, well, maybe they are the children you need to think about. They're larger than life, the characters, because actually that's what you're talking about, isn't it? To capture something that's energetic and engaging, really.
Yeah, definitely. I love the whole topic of photography, and this could go on for ages. I used to do photography as well. I did night school photography. I set my bedroom up as a teenager as a dark room. I didn't have many friends. And I had all the trays set up, and I had the blackout tape around the door, and I used to do all that myself. And just before I moved to Spain, I found all my photographs, and my wife Dasha was looking at me, just shaking her head, saying, "What on earth were you doing as a teenager?"
I shot on film quite recently for a company who wanted it shot on film. They just liked the look of it, and it was nice to get the camera out again. And it's interesting because you sort of consider the shot a lot more because it's costing you money every time you take a picture, especially on a medium format, because it's really expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
And digital is amazing, but especially with film, you do consider it a lot more.
Yes.
Quite a nice way of working. But
the expense and the time that it took as well. You had your film, and then you had your paper and your chemicals, and all that industry disappeared, didn't it? Right. Really, that processing side of it.
Yeah.
As a photographer, Andy, can you tell if an image has been shot on film? Is it that clear to you?
I mean, you can get effects now. You can put on a digi camera that'll make it look as though it's shot on film. So it's got a different feel about it. You can a little bit. Yeah, but practically it doesn't really work in schools. It's gone really, that sort of industry, sadly.
And actually different manufacturers of film, Kodak, Fuji, they had different color tones to them as well. So you could tell usually which photograph was on which paper stock or which film.
Really?
It's interesting. The kids now are into the kids are into like Polaroid cameras now. That's all coming around again, which is great because it has a very specific look about it. If you got an 8x10 Polaroid, do you remember those, or 5x4? They had a lovely smell about them. That was nice. Yeah. And you used to put them under your armpit for about 2 minutes before you.
But they develop faster.
Yeah. So
Are they the ones you used to sit at a party doing this with?
That was it. Yeah.
Andy, I think the one thing that comes to mind when we see your work, and the one we've used lots and lots of photographers, and what stands out from the imagery that we get back from you is, I think David mentioned before, we always write a brief, and in our briefs we always try and learn the nature and the character of a school. That's really important to Blue Apple. And when we write that brief, we can see that being reflected back when your imagery comes back. It's obvious that you've taken the time to read through that and listen to what we're talking about in the school. I suppose my question is, we also see lots of photography being used in school marketing that looks like the school has captured it. And actually there's a big difference, I think, between, well, that's a nice photo of that teacher and the child, and a well thought out image that's designed to do a job. And that's kind of the mistake that we see being made in some photography. Are there any other mistakes that those schools that are trying to do it themselves are making, an advice perhaps you could give them?
When they're doing shots for like their social feeds, all that. So I do see a lot of shots for people obviously standing up when they're taking the pictures. So they're looking down on the students. So if you try and get down to their level, that helps a lot.
So actually physically squatting down.
Move, yeah. Lighting, you could try, because school lighting is awful. It's always terrible. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's never considered school lighting really. But if you could turn out the lights, if there's a nice big window, so shoot window light, that always looks lovely. You could invest in a decent flash gun. Always try and bounce your flash. Don't do it direct onto the subject because that'll look terrible.
When you bounce your flash, Andy, what would you do? You face it away,
bang. You get your flash and you just kind of turn it into a wall. So you're getting that reflected light onto the subject, not direct.
Yeah.
That always helps. If they've got kids outside, don't take or try not to take pictures with the sun direct on the face, because that can look awful. Try and get the sun behind them. You get a nice little. I mean, these things are not always possible. These are the ideals really. So
yeah.
So that, and the composition, think about that. I mean, there's quite a lot to think about really. How you engage with them when you're shooting them, so you make them look, things like that.
What you're saying is don't do it and get me in it.
Well, we did it a long time, I suppose. So, I suppose it is a bit of experience helps.
So you mentioned, and I'd like to come to that experience part, because we did cut you off and started talking about your school photo when we asked you how did you get into it. But you mentioned composition then. Why is that important?
I guess the rule of thirds, that's the classic one, isn't it? Really, how you think about it. As we were saying, where is the text going to be? You've got to compose.
And what's rule of thirds, Andy, for obviously people watching who don't necessarily know what that is? What
I'm in the middle now, so it's basically I'm here now, something like that. That's,
okay, yeah.
That type of thing.
Right.
There's a shot you might have that got me into school photography. We did a whole piece about an alumni, wanted to do a series of alumni shots. And this school we did in, I think it was High Wycombe or somewhere, they had quite flash alumni. One of them was Heston Blumenthal, another white guy was Kenton Cool, who's a mountaineer. And that's the rule of thirds in that. So that was a nice shoot to do, actually. They really inspired the kids.
Right, okay.
A successful campaign. And I can imagine any school in the country will have somebody of note who's been there that they could contact. They'd probably come in, do it for free because it's their old school. That's what Heston did. And you get a nice series of those sort of, I suppose, aspirational, this is what you can end up like, if you come to this school type thing. So that was a lovely job to do. It was really nice to do. And we did it in black and white, which was good, a bit of a risk.
So I think what would be nice is if we've just talked about that, if we get those photographs and we put them on screen now so people can see what you mean by them.
So
and then
the shot,
you can see what the composition works.
The rule of thirds. Mad professor shot, that was the idea.
Okay.
Very good. So, and what does the future hold for you and for your plans within school photography?
Well, hopefully more of the same, because I do enjoy it. I think there's a big shift towards video at the moment. I've noticed that since the last year, for obvious reasons. A lot of sort of 360 tours of the school, which I don't know if they work too much because they sort of lack emotion really. They just show the physical buildings. I think rolling video on websites, that can be quite effective.
What do you mean by that, Andy?
When you click on a website and you see loads of different video clips of the kids, the facilities, and that can look quite nice.
Okay.
That seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment, which is very easy to shoot on regular cameras. I think the technology at the moment is amazing, the way it's going. It's very affordable, the kit.
Yeah.
I think prospectus, that's still, print is definitely not dead. And I think a parent visiting a school when they can, they'll want to take something away from them. It doesn't have to be a huge brochure. It could be a beautiful postcard, but something really well produced.
Yeah.
Thought gone into it. Take that home and you're considering this school. And I think that's still, that tactile approach is still valid, I think, still.
And I think something that you're doing now is drone footage as well, isn't it? That you pilot the drone and you take footage for schools as well. And how did that come about? Why did you go down that route? Because you've done some for us and it's been fantastic. So
yeah, I'm not the best. I'm getting better. I'm not the best pilot in the world, but I was asked a lot last year and I just didn't get around to buying one. And as I was saying, the technology is a lot more affordable now. It's a lot safer, the drones nowadays. You don't need a 2-man crew. It's all, you can't crash the thing. So you don't want to crash into the kids. That's the worst thing that can happen. But a lot of these schools have amazing playing fields, and it's a really good way of showcasing that. Just a nice little fly past.
Yeah. So more of the facilities of a school, perhaps the drones is used for. Yeah.
And it helps you locate the school as well, doesn't it? I think get a sense of its size and its physical location. It's interesting to hear you talk like that, Andy, because I think that's probably the thing that's changed for us about our relationship with photography is recognizing. I think previously, David, we've always thought of photography and video as being very separate. And recently, probably maybe during sort of COVID, that recently it's been sort of, well, actually, there's an opportunity there when we're engaging in photography to capture some of those moving images. So we don't necessarily have to be involved in a full video project to just get some moving images that might work on a website. And that wasn't really on our radar before, I think. I think maybe that's the biggest development from our point of view. Do you do a lot of that when you do a photo shoot?
I did this week. Yeah, I did. It's quite full on. It's a full on day because when you're doing the both, but it's definitely doable. And I think a lot of prospectuses now you can get these QR codes, can't you? When it just goes into like a mini film. I think with the video, keep it 2 minutes. There's a lot of long ones around, and just you're just really selling that emotion of the school. That's what I'm trying to get across anyway in the video.
And I think what's lovely as well, Andy, is that if you think of a school yearbook, especially in the independent sector, they're usually quite a tome of a book that they produce each year. And something that we've worked on is having that welcome from the head teacher. It's usually a paragraph or 17 as an introduction to the yearbook and about the amazing things they've done that year. But wouldn't it be nice, as we've done on a couple of occasions, if that head teacher would then have a QR code to find out a little bit more about them and the school, and then actually, parents can not only read about what they've done in that year, but then there's some video footage, or it takes you to some footage of the drone of the school, so they can see some of the activities throughout the year that were going on. And I think it just having that option to provide more photography, drone footage, video work as part of a printed piece as well, is something which I think we should start to expect more of, really. As it's not just a brochure or a yearbook anymore. Actually, it can be much more. What's the word I'm thinking of?
Augmented reality.
Well, yeah, a little bit like that, but you can. It's a little bit Harry Potter, isn't it? The pictures on the walls move, and when they're reading the newspaper, the pictures are moving, and really they should be like that. The schools need to get more into that, because I think parents are expecting it now. They're expecting more than just a flat publication. Actually, I want to find out a bit more. I want to see that what the headmaster's been up to, and what he's done with the school that year, and take scan the code on my phone, and then it take you off into another world of what's been happening. And I think that's where your skill set can really be developed, in terms of not your skill set developed, but the what you do can be utilized in print as well as in video and on the website. We need to think about that a little bit more. Sorry, I'm getting really excited about it, but I think there's so much opportunity for schools to make more of film work and drone work. And
I think testimonials work quite well. You can grab a couple of parents and say, what do you love about students? What do you love about this place? Ask the head, what do you really love about this place? Not the normal spiel. And you get a lot more an authentic answer. And I tend to go along those lines, really, when I'm trying to interview them. Not every head is happy on camera, but but you could just get one of the SLT to do it. Somebody who's happy on camera to do it.
Yeah. There's always somebody. Who will be comfortable on camera. Unlike myself and
me. Yeah.
Andy, thank you so much for joining us today and for talking so enthusiastically about what you do. I've learned loads. I'm sure everyone else has. And we really appreciate you joining us and taking the time. My tea's just about out, so I think it's time we call it a day.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thanks very much.
Great chatting, Andy.
There you go. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our chat with Andy Catterall. I certainly learned quite a lot there from the points that Andy was making, and if we've inspired you to take a look at your own school images and you think that they could do with a refresh, or you think that they're not quite capturing the remarkable elements of your school, then please do get in contact with us, and we'd love to send Andrew in to refresh your photography and hopefully give your marketing and communications a new impetus and a new push. As I mentioned most weeks, remember that we run our regular school branding and identity masterclass. Really great starting point for anybody that's looking to get a handle on their marketing and communications in their school. Our contact details are at the end. Again, please feel free to get in touch. We'll tell you how to sign up for the next event. If you like what you've seen today and in any of our previous episodes, please do like and subscribe to the channel. And if you know of anybody that you think might benefit from these conversations, let them know where we are. Bring them along to a chat perhaps next week. Speaking of next week, we will be discussing and developing really on the theme of the remarkable in the school. It's something that we talk quite a lot about, but specifically this is something that's come back from a question that I was asked on one of those branding identity masterclasses. And we'll be expanding on the theme and talking about how you can develop a school brand that represents more than just the very obvious unique selling points of a school. Thanks for joining us today. Stay remarkable, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Out of the Blue, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below, and please ring the bell for notifications. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye!